All right, now we welcome in John Hurd to the Minor Lounge. John, a former Baylor basketball student manager turned walk-on turned scholarship player. John, welcome to the lounge.
Thanks, Andrew. I appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. Always a pleasure to have a former Baylor great. A lot of, the NCAA tournament starts this week, today, in fact, and then the Baylor Bears play tomorrow. The girls are in San Antonio. Um, what when you look at the season, what kind of ride has it been like for you?
I mean, it's been really exciting. All my friends and I have a group chat. Every single time the Bears are playing, we're always going and talking, and the group chat just goes for hours basically on play by play, reaction by reaction. So I mean, it's been an exciting year because it was a year for firsts. For a lot of things. Big 12 champions. Obviously, we're number one seed for the first time. So I think one thing that always strikes me, I love reading breakdowns the next morning after games, and people are always breaking down why we're excelling the way that we are. And I think one thing that doesn't get mentioned enough is just the culture with Baylor. You can't talk Baylor basketball without speaking to the culture. See that with a lot of teams that are making it now. One thing that strikes me, I love this narrative that Grant McCaslin and Paul Mills, old assistant coaches, have now made the tournament as well in the same year, and I think they're even in our bracket,
They're in the same
which is exciting. Yeah. So I've actually got my bracket right here. I don't know if it's a very good one, but I've got North Texas playing us in the Elite Eight. So I've got Coach Mack making his way, and then also I've got Oral Roberts going pretty far too. So I had to support my boys.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a great point, and it really speaks to the coaching tree of Scott Drew. Obviously, Coach Tang has been
Yeah, no
garnered a lot of
question.
attention, and he's still there. But other guys like Mills have gone to other places. And is Oral Roberts a 15 seed and North Texas where are they, 13?
Yeah, they've got North Texas 13 and Oral Roberts 15. So I've been texting with them a little bit. Sam Patterson and some of those guys, and I mean they're just so fired up. It doesn't get any better than this. So I hope that we end up meeting some of them. That would be really fun. But yeah, I mean Coach Tang, big credit to him. I mean he's been a part of this program for a number of years now, since the very beginning, basically, and it's fun to see how consistent these guys are in their method. Basically, year after year, it's the same grind and the same culture that they're instilling in the players. And I mean, you see that they're changing lives. We always have a few guys that, even from a religious standpoint, come in and they get a lot of old players have been baptized during their time there. So they've been spreading the good news, but also we've been winning a few games too. So that's been exciting.
Yeah, you touched on that culture of joy. Was that tagline or acronym around when you were there as well, or is it kind of evolved and taking different forms over the years?
I think it's evolved and taken new forms every year. But like I said about the consistency, I mean, I think Coach Tang reposts anything Baylor basketball with culture of joy at the top, and it's every single day I see it, and I'm like, man, that is so awesome that they're just basically hammering down this message that, hey, this is what we're about. And it's a big credit to why we've been so successful this year.
When you were on the team, what was the best part of the culture to you? When you were in the locker room with the guys at the games, at practice, what was the best part of about the everyday culture?
I mean, I think that's a good question. I mean, we had a lot of great guys on the team. It was just fun. One thing that you always hear ex-players talk about, any sport, doesn't matter what level, high school, college, or NFL, people always miss the locker room, like playing and practicing every day and being able to travel is obviously incredible, but it's the before practice and after practice hanging out in the locker room that was so great. But I think one thing that was great is that just we were constantly doing Bible studies, praying before we, go on the court and after practice and everything like that too. So just the focal point that Coach Drew would have from the faith-based component to our everyday lives was really powerful for me. I mean, it's helped me, shape the man I am today. And I'm constantly kind of reaching out to them just to be like, hey, really just want to let you know, I know that we're beating this down, but I appreciate the opportunity that you gave me at Baylor. It's helped me while I was there, it's helped me after college at my job, so you can't kind of underestimate some of the stuff that they've instilled in their players' lives. They really care.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And as you mentioned, as we've seen, it's translated to success on the basketball court itself. You've already hit some of the high water marks. First #1 overall seed, first Big 12 championship game. First Big 12 championship regular season, and it's their first conference title since 1950. I was curious, to get your thoughts on some of the players, because it seems like every single guy on the team has something that they're just great at, and it's like a perfect puzzle, just putting all the pieces together. Whether it's Jared Butler and Jonathan Chamala-Chachua or Flo Thamba, the list goes on and on. You can name every single guy, but what kind of strikes you when you're watching the team? And
one thing that I've always thought about is, and I say this all the time, whether I'm playing pickup with friends or whether you're watching a college basketball game, I don't know how necessarily accurate this theory is, but I always have thought that it's not the first matchup, it's not the second matchup, it's always the third matchup on the court that decides who's winning the game. And that's just been something that I've observed, and for us, like, you can guard any two guys, like you can put your best two players on anyone on our who's on the court, but it's that third guy. You can't guard everyone on our team, because we can get hot at any moment, and it doesn't matter. It's a different guy that gets hot every night, Yeah. So I think that's what stands out to me the best. But also, like, people don't talk enough about our love to play defense. It kind of brings me back to watching like the Tweety Carter, Lace Darius Dunn, Henry Dugat days, where we've just got a bunch of guys on the court who are trying to prove themselves every single night, and that's totally apparent. I think these guys feel like they're being overlooked every so often, I mean, obviously we're getting some major credit this year, but Baylor fans have felt snubbed for decades now, so it's good to see some positivity around our team, and we're finally getting the credit that we deserve.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so many guys, so many different things. I like that you compared the defensive play to Tweety Carter and those guys. For the teams that you were on, what would you compare some of the styles of this team to, some of the teams that you played on? Obviously, there's Mark Vidal, and he gets compared to Rico Gathers a lot. I'm not sure how much he likes that specifically, but
I know. I don't think I think he wants to be Mark Vidal. I don't think he wants to be Rico Gathers.
I know.
Yeah.
But what does this team remind you of? Of the teams that you played on?
Well, anytime that I'm watching, our guys, I'm thinking of AJ Walton and Tweety Carter every time, because they just the way that they get after it on defense is so obvious, when you're watching, and it kind of gets you fired up. You're like, you want to go play some basketball yourself after watching these guys, But here's that I was there. It's just a little bit different schematically because, we played a zone defense when I was there,
right.
And it would appear that isn't really the case anymore. We're kind of playing man. We play zone a lot still, but I think it's a good mix nowadays. But yeah, we're all zone, so it's just a little bit different. I don't know if there's really a comparison to this team, really.
Yeah.
Each one was unique in their own way, but I actually just got off the phone with Brady. We were catching up a little bit and talking about my sophomore year team that went to the Sweet 16 in 2013. And so that was just kind of fun to reminisce on those days and that journey.
What was he saying about that? That was the 2013-14.
Yeah.
What was he kind of reminiscing or remembering about that team when you were talking to him?
I mean, he was just kind of talking about how it was mainly in preparation for him after college, because he's just so solidified as this shooter, and everyone knew he was a shooter at that point too. So I think when he looks back on those times, he just loves how solidified his game was at that point and his role within the team. So we were just laughing about how cool of an experience it was. I mean, we played in the Sweet 16, in the NCAA tournament, and it's just always, some of the most watched games in any sport, So as long as you don't get upset by Yale or Georgia State, it's always a really fun time.
Right. Yeah, I wanted to ask, it's interesting because you kind of experienced all ends of the spectrum, of the March Madness spectrum, right? You were the favorite in, a first round game and won in advance in that Sweet 16, and then upset number 3 seeded Creighton.
Yeah.
And then lost in the Sweet 16 as, I think Wisconsin was the 2 seed of that year. Or
yeah.
I misremember. I'm sure I'm misquoting, but you lost to Wisconsin, and then the next couple years you got upset by double-digit seeds of Georgia State and Yale, and Georgia State was even at the buzzer, so you even experienced that buzzer beater feeling. The range of emotions are so dynamic.
You can't put that on paper. The emotion that you feel during a time like that.
Is it weird for you that that you kind of experience the full gambit of what can happen in March Madness?
I mean, yes, I would have loved to go to the Sweet 16 every year and obviously Final Four. But looking back, I mean, I'm thankful that we had the experience that we had. Obviously, I would have loved to go further. But looking back, I mean, the storylines were great. I mean, RJ Hunter had a phenomenal game. He went on to have one of the greatest March Madness performances probably within the last 10 years. I mean, I'm sure that if you look up greatest moments, his dad falling out of that chair is probably going to be on there, Yeah. And then Makai Mason doing what he did, which ultimately gave him an opportunity to go up and play at a school like Baylor. That was a big opportunity for him. So I know that he's probably having a successful career overseas right now. So there was some good stuff that came out of it for some players. Obviously, it wasn't good for Baylor fans or Baylor players. But looking back, it keeps you hungry, I'm sure that Coach Drew thinks about that often. And we know that can happen to us. So I know that he's sitting in that locker room right now probably thinking, hey, we've been upset before, do not overlook this first team and think that, we're going to go play Wisconsin or UNC in the second round, because we're going to play Duke in that second round after Yale. And we're totally looking ahead a little bit, so he's preaching that don't let this happen to you,
Yeah. Do you remember what you were kind of thinking on the bench, like live, like your thoughts as, like RJ Hunter's taking a shot or Makai Mason's, just putting up shot after shot, throughout the game?
I do remember, nothing necessarily memorable about the RJ Hunter one other than the roller coaster of emotion. But I do remember thinking during the Yale game that Coach Mills had us sitting down for film the day before, and he said, do not overlook this kid, Makai Mason. He will take you one-on-one, and that was basically what he was preaching the most was, do not look at this kid and think that he will not, feel disrespected and will not try and take you one-on-one to the rack. And that's exactly what he did. We played one-on-one with Makai the entire game. And I mean, it was just tough, but thankful looking back, but that was a tough game.
Sure. What about, a happier moment when you're on the bench against Creighton and, you guys are just making every single thing?
Oh, that was awesome.
What is just the jubilation? Can you describe that?
Yeah. I mean, I just feel like everything's going your way that day. We were playing so incredibly well. And I think one thing that I love most about that team is that we had the Isaiah Austin, Corey Jefferson 4 and 5 position duo. I mean, and Isaiah he basically catch the ball, at the free throw line, and he's taking someone one-on-one to the rack, or he's going to feed down low to Corey Jefferson, So when you've got someone who's 7'1" playing like a guard, like Isaiah Austin, I mean, and then you've got shooters like Gary Franklin, Brady Heslip. I mean, it's a tough team to beat, but I don't remember that game from the bench as much because I actually got in that game, which I was fired up about at the end. Logan Lowry got in and got an and one going to the rack, and Ish got in and got a real nice dunk. So we were fired up to be out there, but that was a really fun night in San Antonio.
Yeah, that was an excellent night, and it's just really incredible all the different NCAA tournament teams that you're on, and of course your journey. I'm looking at this here, and you mentioned the upsets and even that Sweet 16 run. Those upsets he's thinking about. Coach Drew and the team, I'm sure, have talked about that. Going into this 116 game, I'm sure they've talked about maybe Virginia, UMBC, another American East team that upset the Cavaliers a few years back. But everything leading to this point, they've done, I think, a very good job of, honoring the past and the other players like yourself that built the foundation. And they mentioned that, in the regular season finale against Texas Tech, cutting down the nets, like, hey, like, we're honoring all the other players that are here tonight. And, that.
It's interesting that you say that because they don't have to do this, but they did. Every single coach reached out to ex-players saying, hey, I just wanted to thank you for the ground that you laid in what you did in helping, win this Big 12 championship. And you're kind of thinking like, man, I was about to text you and say, hey, congratulations on the year, but they're like reaching out to players. So that just shows that the gratitude that they have for the past and the players that have been there it's so incredibly unselfish for them to reach out and do that, But again, like what I said at the beginning of our conversation, it just speaks to the culture. It's really a testament to them. They've been so consistent for years to come. And then they actually sent out, I received in the mail yesterday a piece of the Big 12 net. And I was like, man, this is just like the coolest thing that they're keeping some people in mind, So thankful that they're, thinking of people, but, they couldn't be receiving any more support from some of the old players, including myself.
That's amazing. Who all reached out to you, specifically? Was it Drew, Tang?
Everybody. Coach Drew. I spoke to Tang, and he was saying, "Hey, man, congratulations on this Big 12." Charlie Melton, the strength coach, Pastor Brewer. So. And then somebody spoke to Jacobs as well. It's just incredible the love that they have for anyone who's associated with this program. Once you play for Baylor, you feel like you kind of never left.
Right. Yeah, and that speaks to the culture of joy. That's so cool that they sent you a net, and they of course won that Big 12 title in Morgantown at West Virginia a few games after the pause. And I'm just curious. It was an amazing game, especially down the stretch. All different factors. Meyer had 10 points in a row. West Virginia was making threes, just back and forth, like a Y pickup game. Just nobody can miss. Like just one of those days. What were your emotions just watching that game coming off the loss against Kansas? Like, were you as tense as I was just watching that game?
Well, I was actually about to. I was playing basketball with some friends, and we're huddled around a phone watching it the whole time, and no one was speaking, everyone was so nervous. But I think Jared Butler's layup at the end was the most textbook in layup of all time, just the way that he, made contact going up and his body control in the air was incredible. I could watch that on replay all night.
So he makes the layup to tie it with like 2 seconds left, and then Jonathan steals the inbounds play where they try to lob it to half court, and Baylor calls a timeout. And I thought they didn't have any timeouts. It showed like no timeouts on the screen, but I think that was a graphic error, obviously. But they call a timeout, and then Jared Butler's inbounding it, and he overthrows Matt Meyer on the baseline. No way he touches the ball, and I immediately think of, when this happened previously when you were a manager against Kansas State. Like, were you thinking the same thing, or did that come to mind?
I was thinking the exact same thing. Everyone was still huddled around the phone, and I away without speaking, and everyone was like, man, what are you doing walking away? And I was like, Kansas State 2012.
Oh.
Man, we were so nervous. watching that game. And I think that, we've had some close battles with Kansas State that were weird, that came down to the wire. And I think that year also, the year before, maybe it was the year before, but, we had a weird overthrown situation as well. And then they got to inbound the ball on their end of the basket, and they threw it in for a 3-pointer and hit that too. So we've had some close games with Kansas State. Anytime we know we're playing them, it's always going to be a close game. But that West Virginia game reminded me a lot of that ending.
Yeah, I asked Coach Drew about that because it reminded me, and it was actually 8 years to the day. It was like the 8-year anniversary at Kansas State.
It was meant to happen.
Yeah, it was, of course. Thankfully, West Virginia couldn't take advantage of it and went to overtime. But all I was thinking was like Jacob Newbert coming in off the bench and going in on our baseline and overthrowing it, the length of the course, and then them, knocking down a three. But you were a manager at the time, so
yeah,
it makes sense why you would remember that too.
Yeah.
Oh gosh. And speaking of walk like that, that's like for me an iconic. It's not a positive, I guess, but it's an iconic Baylor walk-on moment and memory that I have of just over the years of watching basketball. You've had a couple. What about Mark Patterson against Kansas State this year, where he got the block on the fast break, but then was called for the foul? Like, what sort of emotions did that elicit?
Man, you've got to give him the block. In my opinion, I think it was a clean block to start with, but if I'm a ref, I'm giving him the block.
Right.
I love watching Mark get out there because his energy. I've never met him, but his energy is so incredible on the court. It doesn't matter if he's going in for 7 seconds. It doesn't matter if he's going in for 2 minutes. He's going to fly around the court. So he's giving it his all, and I obviously respect that a lot as a walk-on. Doesn't seem like he cares what anyone thinks. He's just going to lay it all on the court. So I love that about him, and love watching Jackson get in as well with the mullet.
Yeah,
mullet. He and Matthew with the mullet bros. That's pretty iconic.
Yeah, that block is like playing pickup where you're calling your own fouls, and someone gets like a major block, and then the guy calls a foul a couple seconds later or whatever, and it's everybody like, come on, like, what are you doing?
Yeah, what are you doing? And then someone says shoot for it.
Yeah.
So
exactly. That play is of course it didn't go down as a block, but certainly another great walk-on play. What was your favorite kind of walk-on play that you did or memory? And I say walk-on, it could be your whole. Obviously, you earned a scholarship over time, but started as a walk-on. What was one of your favorite moments where on the court type deal?
That's a great question. Man, I would have to say that. I mean, I've had a few moments that I think about often. The scholarship was obviously awesome, although that wasn't on the court. The ejection from UT was great. But on the court, I think against Prairie View A&M, we were in a fast break situation. And, they kind of kicked the ball up the court. I can't remember. I think it might have been King that kicked up the court to me. But jab step left and ripped through going right. And I got an and one floater going up. So that was a lot of fun. And, J Mott came up and kind of wrapped me up. And it was like one of these flex moments. And I looked at the bench and everyone was just going crazy. So you can't, as a walk-on, that's kind of like your dream, and it's really fun to see other people react positively to it. And then I went to the free throw line, which was hilarious. So one thing that you don't think about is how quiet it gets in there when you're at the free throw line, because everyone claps when the ball hits the ground, and then you can hear a pin drop in there, and you're like, man, a little bit more quiet in here than I thought it was going to be. So that adrenaline kicks in real quick.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. That's obviously a good, great play. And then you mentioned the ejection. Technically that happened on the court. You only got ejected because you were on the court.
That's a good point. I've got all my friends, including my roommates, they all went to UT. So it's fun to reminisce on that kind of stuff. And, just knowing that all my friends went to, one of the schools that we love as Baylor fans that play the most. We love playing UT in all sports. And one of my buddies just got engaged this weekend, and there were probably 30 UT people there, and I was the only Baylor guy. And they were watching them play in the Big 12 tournament, and of course we weren't in it. OSU was playing UT. So the whole night, everyone was kind of messing with me about how, they were Big 12 tournament champs, and I'm sitting here like, no, we're Big 12 champs. And they're like, no, we're Big 12 champs. I'm like, no, you guys are tournament champs. A little bit different. We won the Big 12.
Yeah, that's wild. And that brings up a good point about season versus tournament. Definitely a distinction and a difference. Obviously, we wish Baylor could have made a run there as well. But real quick on the walk-on moment, because the Texas ejection is one of yours that's really memorable for me, obviously for good reason. But I'm not sure if you remember this. One moment that you got caught up in where that sticks out to me was during the Maui Invitational. Or you guys were playing. You remember this?
Yeah, with Rico.
You know what I'm referring to. So I think you guys hang on for a 1-point semifinal win against Dayton in the Maui Invitational, and I forget. It wasn't a buzzer beater by you guys, but I think it was like a defensive stop, and time ran out, and then the whole bench streams onto the court to celebrate. And I think you go up for a chest bump with Rico, and Rico just obliterates you.
So actually, I'll correct that story, and I'll tell it from my perspective. Okay. So Corey Jefferson gets essentially a game-winning rebound. Time runs out. Everyone goes crazy, and we all storm the court, and I am on full adrenaline. I'm so fired up along with everyone else, but I think I might've been more. And essentially I collided into Rico. We both were running and we both bumped shoulders, and Rico fell over. You should go back and look at the tape, but yeah, so Rico falls over, and I have no idea how that happened. I think what happened was that my dominant foot was on the inside, and it was the opposite for him. So he falls because he's in a weird position. And but I didn't even know that we hit each other because I was so fired up. I had no idea that we collided. So after the game, my phone has about 100 texts, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what did something happen? Basically. And everyone's like, man, I can't believe that you knocked over Rico. And I was like, what are y'all talking about? And then it was on ESPN that night where Rico and I collided. And I don't even remember that happening because my adrenaline was just through the roof. I completely blacked out, basically.
Gosh, I'll have to go back and watch that because I just need a refresher on it anyway. But I remember.
Go back and watch it. You should reach out to whoever our film guy is right now and see if he can send you the tape.
Yeah, no, I definitely will. That's so great. That's just another memory that sticks out to me. That's even better that you knocked him over.
I know. I don't know how that happened. Future tight end for the Cowboys, and I was like, I couldn't even put on weight when I was a sophomore in college. It took me to after college for that to happen.
Sure. That's so great. Well, games tomorrow. Playing Hartford, the American East champs. Should they win, they'd play the winner of UNC Wisconsin. Quick outlook from you, quick prediction from you on those couple games and potential matchups, and then what does Baylor have to do to make a Final Four championship run?
Yeah, that's a good question. I've got the bracket pulled up. Let me go look at this. So, obviously I think we're winning the national championship. Okay. Between UNC and Wisconsin, the one thing that when I look at this bracket, this Southern region, we have so many household names that are in there, and kind of say what you want about how the teams have performed this year. We've got a bunch of teams that have been in the spotlight before and have been in this position before. I mean, UNC, Wisconsin, Villanova, Purdue's having a good year. Obviously, Texas Tech, Florida, Ohio State. I mean, these are household names. Yeah. And so it'll be interesting to see. But one thing that sticks out to me, I think, as long as we don't allow second chance points on offensive rebounds, we're going to be in a good position. because, you know, it would appear that a lot of our close games, they've out-rebounded us on what would be our opponent's offensive end. And, you know, giving them second chance layups. I mean, you can't do that in obviously in March Madness. And then also number two, transition defense is going to be big too. So I've got faith in Scott, in Coach Tang, and the rest of the coaching staff, as everybody should. I know they're going to get them fired up, and I know that these guys work tirelessly on schematics and methodology for each team. So I think they're going to do great. I've got Baylor going all the way, and I hope that North Texas and Oral Roberts do well too. See Sam Patterson and Paul Mills and Grant McCaslin make it. So that'll be awesome.
That'd be great. Do you have who's your Final Four? Do you have a Cinderella? And then obviously you said Baylor's your champ.
My Cinderella is North Texas.
Okay, yeah.
I've got them playing us in the Elite Eight, but you know, I disclaimer on my bracket, I don't have a lot of faith in it because I just kind of I didn't pick my Final Four and then select everything to move in. I just kind of selected in. I looked up and that was my Final Four, you know? So I've got Baylor, Virginia, Alabama, and Tennessee.
Okay.
So a little bit of a random Final Four, but I've got us playing Alabama in the national championship.
Yeah. A lot of people like Alabama. Virginia is really, really interesting. They're, of course, recovering from COVID, and they're in Gonzaga's region. And Tennessee would be an interesting one too. But, you know, brackets don't matter. They're all going to be destroyed.
They're all going to be destroyed. Doesn't matter. There's a part of me that wants to see us play Gonzaga because the hype all year has been so fun to watch, you know. And then also we've got two guys on our coaching, obviously Coach Jakis and then Rim, who used to be a walk-on at Gonzaga. He's on our coaching staff. And so it'd be fun for those guys to play Gonzaga in the national championship.
Sure. I agree. John, thank you so much for your time and coming on, joining me in the Minor Lounge. You know, for people that want to interact with you and you know, celebrate your Baylor success with this Baylor team throughout the tournament, where can they find you on Twitter?
Yeah, they can find me on Instagram, John Hurd _, and then also I think my Twitter is, I think it's like jhurd13 maybe. So let me check that real quick. I'm sure that's the case, but would love for jhurd _13. I'd love for anyone reach out if they have any questions, but it's always fun to be on the Minor Lounge. I appreciate everything you do for promoting Baylor. It's great to see someone who has as much love for the school. I do want to give a quick shout out real quick to, I saw that they released the new Baylor hoodies.
Oh,
and everyone's talking about these. I love wearing this whenever I get the chance. So they just released some good ones. I've got one of the originals right here.
Oh, originals. I'm
going to have to lock my door so that no one breaks in and steals it one night.
Put that in a safe place. Yeah.
I will, for sure.
Blowing up your phone for hoodies now, thinking that they can have an inside track. So
yeah, no question.
Man. Well, thank you again for coming on and really appreciate you. Sick 'em Bears.
Yeah, thank you.